Hola, my name is Ruth Darby. I'm here today to read my ebook, my Spanglish Fantastico ebook to you. Por favor, give the video a like, leave a comment and tell me what you think of el video, and without further ado, let's get started. Spanglish Fantastico. The bridge from English to Spanish. Learn Spanish fast with Spanglish Fantastico. Book publishing details. Listen as you read with full audio of this ebook on YouTube. Welcome to Spanglish Fantastico. At Spanglish Fantastico, we want to get beginners started con español. Of course we do. But most adultos who start to learn español give up when they're still beginners, and we want to turn that on its head. We want most people who start learning español to become independent users of esta lengua bonita. We want you to progresar rápidamente to un punto where you are able to describir tus experiencias and opiniones so that you can conversar with native speakers without strain for either party. What is Spanglish and how do we learn? Spanglish es la fusión del español con el inglés among bilingual comunidades. Spanglish Fantastico is Spanglish that has been carefully crafted to help you learn Spanish. In his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains we humanos can study, think and memorize new información de manera consciente. This is slow and takes a lot of energía. The other way we can think and learn no es consciente and no requiere mucha energía. It only needs your atención and then it just happens. This is how we all learn our first lengua. You know that to be true. Our toddlers don't study and think hard para aprender. If you have the right type of materiales, you can learn español the same way that you learned inglés. Fast. La idea is quite simple. The more exposure you have to español, the quicker you will reach a high level of proficiency. If your input is all en español, it would be difícil to mantener focused atención because you wouldn't know enough español to understand el texto. But you want to read something interesante, something educativo. You want to be able to absorber español because that will get you to fluency as fast as possible. But maybe you also want to feel like you are estudiando español and do some slow and consciente learning at the same time. First language, help and hindrance. The good news is that Spanish and Inglés are muy similares. There are aproximadamente 20,000 cognates. Our alfabetos are mostly the same, and most of the letras en el alfabeto español represent the type of sound an English speaker would expect them to. La estructura de español is also very similar to Inglés. They both use the parts of speech in the same sort of way. The bad news is that there are still some diferencias importantes and there are some dificultades. There are apparent cognates that don't mean what we might expect them to mean, such as constipado, having a cold, or embarazado, being pregnant. There are diferencias en la pronunciación. Por ejemplo, estudiantes can struggle to make a k sound every time they see the letters QU. La gramática es similar, but it isn't exactamente igual. Por ejemplo, there are 4 words for you, and some verb tenses are used slightly differently. As you read español that is embedded en un texto inglés, your brain will subconsciously notice and absorber vocabulario and grammatical patterns so that you get a feel for el lenguaje. You will build your own intuición about how to say things. La importancia of this subconscious aprendizaje should not be underestimated. And you get that through exposure to frases y means and, say y, through exposure to frases y vocabulario that you can entender. But you're not a toddler. You already speak English. Some of los errores that you're likely to make in terms of la pronunciación, el vocabulario y la gramática are quite predictable because you are a fluent English speaker. By bringing them to your atención, métodos tradicionales of teaching Spanish aim to give you a shortcut to accuracy en el español that you use. Learning how los verbos funcionan, memorizing diálogos and perhaps song lyrics, having some ejercicios to completar and some tests to work la memoria are all ejemplos of slow learning. At Spanglish Fantastico, we want to make learning less academic and more accessible so that estudiantes can quickly progresar to being confident and accurate Spanish speakers. So we want that fast subconscious learning to happen. But we want to give you some of the slow, consciente aprendizaje too. And the really good noticias is news, not notices, is that they can happen at the same time. How it all began. The Spanglish Fantastico story. Mi nombre es Ruth Darby and I'm a Spanish teacher. I love self-study books, textbooks and cursos de español. Pero I can find it frustrating when I find materiales that are designed to help people learn español have mucho más información en inglés than they do en español. I see it as a missed oportunidad. As estudiantes de español, you need to hear or read as much meaningful español as you can. I began teaching lenguajes in 1998 and I have identificado 3 categorías of words that beginners can access. Cognates are words that look really similar. Community en inglés, comunidad en español. I'm pretty sure I can say comunidad instead of community. You can understand and continuar. Context allows you to guess accurately. You might be able to guess that aprender means to learn by seeing it in context, such as our toddlers don't study and think hard para aprender. You can entender and continuar. Translation and teaching. If I spend un poco de tiempo to tell you that palabra means word, that palabra comes from the Latin root that gives us parable, which is a type of story, and parley, which is a type of talking meeting, then from that point onwards, en el texto, I can use palabra rather than word. Even if you wouldn't have guessed the meaning of palabra from el contexto previously, you will now because it's been taught. Initially, I was only teaching face-to-face classes and using Spanglish in my speech to guide estudiantes through los cursos. La técnica was working well, so I decidí to take it to a wider audiencia by writing down some of the verbal input I was giving to estudiantes en mis clases. Spanglish Fantastico was born. The plan was to producir libros that taught Spanish through Spanglish. Lenguaje is a conduit. Go to any of the old Spanish language textbooks and you will find biografías, publicidad, información about la cultura y la geografía in Spanish-speaking countries, as well as listas de vocabulario, scripts for diálogos, y conversaciones and explanations about how español funciona. I decidí to use my voice directamente as the narrator, la narradora, to make the reader feel that their profesora es presente, much like una amiga who is helping you to aprender. Reading route to success. 1. Step 1, paso uno. Spanglish for your holiday. Jokes to help you learn Spanish. 2. Step 2, paso dos. Learn Spanish in a week. Spanglish Fantastico. 3. Learn Spanish with your children. A Spanish phrasebook for educators. Pedro Rabbit. Spanglish Fantastico. Let your language instinct shine. Humanos are great at learning lenguajes, but up until recientemente, sistemas de educación have not been excelente at understanding how we learn lenguajes. As Steven Pinker says in su libro maravilloso, lenguaje is a complex, specialized skill which develops in the child spontaneously, without esfuerzo consciente or instrucciones formales. He also says lenguaje is deployed without awareness of its underlying logic and is distinct from more general abilities to process información or behave con inteligencia. This is what we want for you. We want español to develop espontáneamente and for you to use it without having to think about its lógica subyacente. As you are an adulto inteligente, we believe that you can achieve conversational fluency en español far faster than the years that it takes a child. Steve Kaufman, a polyglot who can speak 20 languages, has this to say about el proceso de aprendizaje. The best way to aprender un lenguaje is to massively ingest it by listening and reading. Listening and reading are muy powerful. If you can read los libros, you know the lenguaje. To get to know a lenguaje takes mucho tiempo and a lot of interacting with it. Y mucho de ese tiempo has to be on your own. I think it's better to work on comprensión y vocabulario without pressure to reproducir el lenguaje by speaking. Start your reading in Spanglish as you learn los básicos. Then continúa reading en español as you progress to fluency. The Spanglish Fantastico Library. Spanglish for your holiday. This book is dividido into days of the week. On each day there is some Spanglish with Maxi, Ruth y la familia. Then there is una sección which contains una presentación relacionado con learning español. After this, there is a sección to help you practicar your español. Jokes to help you learn Spanish. Chistes, jokes. 42 short capítulos, but muchos más chistes than that. New vocabulario is presentado and you are given tips on how to remember it before reading it en un chiste. Mi mente is my mind. Demente is of the mind, which makes me wonder where we get demented from. I wasn't going to get un trasplante de cerebro, but then I changed mi mente. Learn Spanish in a week. La primera cosa I want to say is you don't have to completar este curso in a week. There are 50 lessons that build upon each other to take an absolute beginner from nada to una conversación general de 5 minutos o más con un nativo by el fin del curso, for those who like a challenge. Spanglish Fantastico, learn how to comunicar en español. 109 short capítulos grouped into 5 secciones. Las 5 secciones broadly cover the topics of me and mi familia, bares y restaurantes, places and direcciones, hotels y apartamentos, and your daily rutina. There are ejercicios and reviews so you can check your own progress. A Spanish phrase book for educators. Spanish words and phrases for people working with young children. Useful phrases to learn con la familia or in school. 43 themes with frases y actividades to do with your little ones. Each frase is translated and spelled out phonetically, and they have been taken from sources relacionado con la infancia, such as el programa de televisión The Secret Life of 4-Year-Olds. You will enjoy learning español together with your little experto. Pedro Rabbit, Beatrix Potter's fabuloso cuento de Peter Rabbit, reworked by Lucía Corazón into una historia que incluye 74 palabras de español. La historia is accompanied not only by vocabulario and guías de pronunciación, but also by a dedicado página web and a full reading de la historia on YouTube. Spanglish Fantastico. From here to fluency. Paso 1. Spanglish Fantastico libros. Paso means step. Un viaje is a voyage. Un viaje de 1,000 kilómetros begins with un solo paso. No importa the exact order you take your pasos, as everyone's is starting from a slightly different punto. Lo que importa is that you make that start. All 6 of the Spanglish Fantastico book titles are aimed at beginners, with the Spanish phrasebook for educators and Pedro Rabbit aimed específicamente at those who want to learn español alongside very young people, suggested for niños de 4 a 11 años. If your children are slightly older, they might like to start their learning journey with jokes to help you learn Spanish, recommended for ages 11 and over. As you read, you will accumulate vocabulario y confianza. It won't feel like you are estudiando español. In fact, beginners report that they even forget they are reading español at all. In los libros Spanglish for Your Holiday, Spanglish Fantastico, and Learn Spanish in a Week, you will find tasks to completar, to test la memoria, which some people find muy útil. Learn Spanish in a Week is built around 50 grupos de vocabulario that are then utilizado in 50 diálogos. All 50 lecciones have audio freely available on YouTube. Es una buena idea to get some listening too. Reading and listening are the main pillars of language learning. Recomiendo 100 Days of Spanish on YouTube, a lesson a day for 100 days. time flies when you're having fun. The aim of these libros is to enable you to entender and utilizar familiar everyday expresiones y frases muy básicos to comunicar basic needs. You will learn to introducir yourself, tu familia y tus amigos. Talk about where you live, personas you know, and the things you have. You will aprender how to participar en conversaciones if the other person talks slowly and is prepared to help. The levels, los niveles of español that each paso del camino are graded by come from the Council of Europe's Common Framework of Reference for Languages. Este nivel is all about una introducción to español, developing the ability and confianza to have a go at comunicación en español and building a foundation of a good cantidad de vocabulario, frases y diálogos básicos. While you are en el camino to nivel 1, you might like to read other Spanglish materiales. Write un email con el título Spanglish Recomendaciones to ruth@spanglishfantastico.com and we will send you una lista de recursos that you might find útiles. We also welcome tus recomendaciones, so be sure to tell us what else you are using and loving. Paso 2. Comenzar un curso. Los libros de Spanglish Fantastico will give you a great start that you will be able to entender. El próximo paso, the next step, is to comenzar un curso. Cursos will gradually introducir la gramática, relevando el misterio en el contexto de materiales originales from around the Spanish-speaking mundo. Cursos tend to introducir lenguaje agrupado en temas, themes, con ejercicios, so that you can practicar un poco. The best option is to comenzar un curso de español in Spanglish. That means los materiales, la profesora, and you would use español to the extent that you can entender y un poco más allá, a little bit beyond. When I teach, yo uso Spanglish to stretch beginners and deliver as much en español as they can understand, perhaps a little bit more. After all, as estudiantes de español, es importante aceptar that you are not going to entender 100%. To bring mis clases to a wider audiencia, I am en el proceso of finishing a complete set of video lecciones that acompañan a good class textbook that's called Pasos. Este libro has nothing to do with Spanglish Fantastico other than I am using it to teach with, y mis videos are not recursos oficiales del libro. El curso Pasos takes estudiantes through all los básicos to nivel A2, equivalente to the GCSE in Inglaterra and Wales. Mis videos are open and free access and you can simply listen and watch, or you can use the Pasos textbook para completar los ejercicios at the end of each video lección. As you completas las lecciones that cover unidades 1 to 7 in the textbook, you should completar your Spanglish reading. Remember, you can write an email con el título Spanglish Recomendaciones to Ruth@spanglishfantastico.com and we will send you una lista de recursos that you might find útiles. Unidades 1 to 7 will feel comfortable, cómodas, and you will learn. Unidades 8 a 14 de Pasos will bring you up un nivel, and at this point you should start reading libros en español. Don't worry, you can do it. There are plenty of graded readers for estudiantes adultos de español. Reading these graded readers, A1 and A2, will aumentar tu vocabulario, but it will also open up your own fluency en español. This is because as you read, your own internal voice creates el lenguaje en tu cerebro, in your brain. As you read, remember these 2 tips. Don't torment yourself with un diccionario. If you don't understand a word, move on. Sound it out at the most. Concentrate on what you understand. And if you think you could use it, write it down en español. After all, you understand it. You should also begin to watch Netflix en español, listening out for things that you entiendes. The best way to do this is put on a show or a film that you are already familiar with and enjoy it en español. The Pasos curso enables you to entender and utilizar español en muchos contextos. El curso presenta un poco de la gramática, raising your awareness of la estructura de este lenguaje. However, este nivel is realmente about being able to entender y comunicar en español. Paso 3. Un poco de gramática. El problema con la gramática is that it slows you down when you want to conversar. Fans of la gramática might be throwing their hands up in horror at this assertion, so let me explicar. When la gramática is introducido too early, estudiantes are given la impresión falsa that they have to think through una lista de reglas or rules before they open their mouths and make some kind of error horrible. However, by starting your estudios con the Spanglish Fantastico libros and then going through el Pasos curso, la énfasis inicial has been on getting a working knowledge of español. Now you have that, you can begin to add the finesse you will gain by studying la gramática un poco. Las buenas noticias, the good news, is that there are muchos recursos that are online, open access, and completamente gratis. Las malas noticias is that las explicaciones are en inglés rather than using un poco de español when you would be able to entenderlo. Even so, los recursos are too good to miss. StudySpanish.com has text-based presentaciones y ejercicios. Muchas personas like to be able to read información en una página, completar some multiple-choice style preguntas, and get immediate feedback. StudySpanish.com is great for this. SpanishDict.com has video-based presentaciones y ejercicios. The obvious advantage is that you hear el español as well as being able to read it. Las explicaciones are not as simple as the ones in StudySpanish.com, but they are excelentes. Los ejemplos are basado en conversaciones coherentes, and again, you get immediate feedback on los ejercicios that you do. There are also some great books you can read up on la gramática and practice writing different types of sentences. Collins' Easy Learning Spanish Grammar and Practice. Para mí, this book has the best explicaciones. Spanish Practical Grammar from Pasos. Shorter explicaciones y más ejemplos. Complete Spanish Grammar from Practice Makes Perfect. Más ejercicios for those who like to work. While las explicaciones en estos libros are excelentes, you will find that los ejercicios are en español without translations. This is a clear indicación to me that they are for people who already know some español. If you don't understand a question, my advice would be skip it. You can always go back to it later. La gramática should be interesante to you at este nivel. But don't stop reading and watching la televisión en español. Remember, reading and listening comprise your fast learning, so they are tremendamente importantes. For your reading, you can move on to higher level graded readers, A2, B1 and B2, as well as trying original materiales. BBC Mundo is a news app en español with short, topical stories you can read on your phone. Or you might like 12 Min, which summarises non-fiction books in text and in audio. Whatever you choose, you will start spotting los padrones gramaticales that you're studying in your reading and listening materials. You'll like that. Can entender los puntos principales of clear standard español on familiar matters regularmente encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. Can deal with most situaciones likely to arise whilst travelling in un área where la lengua is spoken. Can producir simple connected text on topics which are familiar or de interés personal. Can describir experiencias y eventos, dreams, hope y ambiciones, and briefly give razones y explicaciones breves para sus opiniones y planes. Paso 4. Choose your camino. As you become fluent in más situaciones, you will want to choose your own camino. Watch more films and TV on Netflix. Start watching lessons for intermediate students, such as those made by Spanish Land on YouTube. Spanish Land es un canal excelente that uses un poco de inglés, but la mayoría de sus explicaciones y ejemplos are en español. Go to universidad. I'm not kidding. There are cursos excelentes that you can completar online with tutor and group support. I'm aware of great opciones from the Open University and York University here in the UK. Have a look around and see what you can find that suits your time and money budget. At this stage, you could even go to a Spanish-speaking country para estudiar español en una clase de inmersión, 100% en español. You would get so much from la experiencia, although it can be expensive. Find people to talk to. There are always Spanish speakers looking for conversaciones. You can find people via language exchange sites or Facebook páginas. Commit to a regular meetup and decide between yourselves how to split el tiempo. Plan what you can talk about beforehand so you don't waste your tiempo. Or pay un profesor. Keep reading. Ebooks, libros de papel, audiolibros, online periódicos, no importa what it is you like to read, if you are reading en español, you are getting more fluent by the day. Do you want to get started? Thank you for reading our ebook. If you want to get started today, head to our website, spanglishfantastico.com, and begin your journey. Spanglish Fantastico, a bridge from English to Spanish.